All right, like I was saying, the African musical instruments are classified into how many?
Four families.
How many families? Four families. And these are actually Western classification of African musical instruments. Okay? And the first of this family is what? Idiophone. Call them idiophonic instruments. Can you read what you have there for idiophonic instruments? These are instruments.
Whose bodies vibrate when struck or shaking to produce sound.
Now, classification of this instrument deals with majorly how this instrument produce their sound. Okay, deals with the production of the sound, how they produce their sound, their acoustic consideration. That is what it means actually. Acoustic consideration talks about how an instrument produces its sound. That is what acoustic consideration means. So if you are asked that what is the acoustic consideration of a shekere, for example, it's expected that a shekere produces the sound by what?
Shaking.
By, thank you, shaking of the instrument, because it's an idiophonic instrument. Okay, so one, that is one, how they produce the instrument, and two is their production, how they are made, the construction, I mean, how they are made. That is for what particular instrument, for particular tools are they made from. Do you understand? So it's very important to understand these two things: how they produce their instruments and the tools that are used for their construction. Do you understand? So two things are important for classification of African musical instruments. One is what? Acoustic consideration, and two is the construction. Again, the first is what?
Acoustic
Consideration and
construction.
So the acoustic consideration talks about what? How they produce sound, and two is the construction. Idiophonic instrument. Now let's see the instruments we have there. Now we have more than these instruments under each of the group. We're only going to be looking at a few of them. All right. And so can you list the instruments you have for idiophonic instruments? Shekere and udu. Then ekwe. Okay. Agogo. Udu is from the eastern parts of the country. Ekwe is also from the eastern parts. Okay, Shekere is from where? Western part of the country, and Agogo is also from the western region of Nigeria. Do you understand?
Yes.
And so this is very important because these are traditional instruments. So if you are listing your traditional instrument, for example, and you're putting saxophone or piano, that's zero. And again, note this: when we get to membranophonic instruments, we talk about that. Don't try to westernize the names of these instruments. Again, listen to me. Do not try to westernize the names of this instrument. Do not try to westernize the names of this instrument. This is shekere. That pronunciation is Yoruba and it's straight Yoruba. This is udu, strictly Igbo. Ekwe, agogo. When you try to, agogo is different from bell. Not a direct interpretation. Agogo is different from bell. So when you call this bell, then you're making a mistake. Yes, that is wrong. Okay, one of the reasons for this is to preserve the uniqueness, the originality, and the roots of this instrument, their culture. So it is agogo, not bell. Do you understand? All right, the next family. Membranophone family. Let's move to where membranophone is.
This includes all musical instruments, all African musical instruments that produce sound by vibration of the stretched membrane skin.
They produce their sound by the vibration of the stretched membrane skin, animal skin. Okay, and these are membranophonic instruments. And if you look at that, the name membranophone is actually from the word membrane, right? Another name for membrane is simply leather. Okay, just like your belt, animal skin, something like that. Animal skin. Okay, they stretched it. There's a process. Okay, it takes a process. They stretch it, spread it, wash, all of those things, and it takes some days. You understand? And so we have more instruments on this. What is it called? Membranophonic instrument. So let's look at the first one. What is the first instrument there? Dun dun. Dun dun. Yeah, more like you're playing a percussive instrument, a traditional percussive instrument. That's the sound. Dun dun. Not dun dun. Not dun dun. Dun dun. Again. dundun, and the next is what?
Omele.
Omele meta. Yeah, omele meta, meta. Okay, not meta. No, that's Western. Omele meta, and the next is what?
Bata.
Bata. Not bata. Bata is shoe. Bata is a drum. So get the sound well. Bata do. Bata do mi. I'm teaching you Yoruba already, and this is a music class. Bata do. Bata do mi. So that bata is a musical instrument. Okay, so learn the pronunciation well. Bata. And under membranophonic instrument, we also have gong. You all know gong, right? And one of the mistakes you make is calling this what? Talking drum. I told you, do not westernize the names of this instrument. So gong is gong, it's not talking drum. So when you say talking drum, that means you are referring to the entirety of African instruments, all African percussive instruments. Because actually all African drums talks. From omele to bata to iyalu to dundun, gudu and so on. All African drums does what? Hello, and the attention. All African drums talks. So when you say talking drum, that means you are referring to all of these together. Omele, bata, they all talk. So it is very important. It is also in the place of which trying to westernize that we call this talking drum. It is gong. Okay, because there is another drum that look like gong that is not gong. Now, the normal name for this should be apala. Not even gong, should be apala. But I won't go deep into that. So when you have gong, there's another one called iyalu. You must have seen that is, it has the same shape, same hourglass shape like gong, but just that is bigger. So they play from here. Gong is played on the upper side of your shoulder like this, but that one is played like this. You must have seen that before, big like this. That is iyalu. Now they look the same thing, but if you're saying talking drum, that means you call gong talking drum. You also call that talking drum, which is wrong. There is nothing separating them. Do you understand what I'm saying? So gong is gong, iyalu is iyalu, bata is bata, omele is omele. Okay, not talking drum. Well, in a way of you trying to just communicate with someone that do you understand it, you can say talking drum, but it is better that you refer to them the original, the correct name. That is the original name. Original is, the word original is from the word what? Origin. When you say original, it's from which word? Origin. And what is origin? What do you understand by the word origin? Origin. So good. A place where something comes from. Let's break it down to say source. Good. Can do that. State of origin. So I'm saying where you are actually from. That's the foundation of that thing, the root of a particular thing, the source of a particular thing. You said? I did that other word, the root of a particular. So when you say original name, that means the original name of talking drum is actually gong or apala or iyalu or so on. That is the original, that is the origin. That's the name from the origin. So you refer to them by the original name, not the Western name. Alright, and the next family we have is what? Aerophone. Aerophonic instruments. Aerophonic instrument. Just like the name implies, can we read?
These are blowing instruments which produce sound by vibration of a column of air.
Simply put, when you vibrate air into these instruments, that is how they produce that sound. Simple English, when you blow air into the sound, they produce that sound. Okay? But then, like, so when you use the word like, it's fine. Like the flute. But then we are not dealing with flutes now. Because flute is actually a Western instrument. We are dealing with African instrument. So when you say flute, you'll be wrong in respect to this. That's a modern instrument. Not even a modern instrument, it's a Western instrument. Modernization is different from Westernization. Don't worry, don't be confused. So it's not a modern instrument, it's a Western instrument. Okay, more like a foreign instrument. That's the flute. Alright, so under aerophonic instruments, what do you have there? OP, I think that is from the east. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this well also. I'm not Igbo, so I don't know. I think that's actually from the eastern region of the country. And we have another one. Ki. Another one. Ki. More like trumpet. right? Can you see the picture? It looks like trumpet, right? That's more like,
So a small mouth.
then it's long. So that is what we actually play to greet, to either giants or to wake up kings in Yoruba. I think they use it in the north also. They use it in the north. I think mostly in the north, sir. Mostly in the north. So the only place you see it is mostly in the palace. You only see it in the palace most times, okay? But that's like our own local trumpet. So instead of trumpet, what we have is ki, and the next is what? Oja. I don't know, but you must have seen that too. Very small like this. So in comparison to Western instrument, that would be a piccolo. A piccolo is also a very small instrument. But now you need to understand something about acoustic consideration. The lighter or the smaller the instrument, the higher the pitch. Again, the smaller the instrument, the higher the pitch. Just like a guitar, the smaller the string, the higher the pitch. If you notice, when you're playing the smallest string of the guitar or the violin, the pitch is high. When you play the biggest string, it becomes low. Do you understand? So the smaller the instrument, the higher the pitch, and the bigger the instrument, the lower or the deeper the pitch. Do you understand that? So when you see Oja, for example, you know that the pitch will definitely be high. You watch all this Igbo movie. They are celebrating something or wedding or trying to install a new king or something. You said any ceremony here, you have that. You must have seen Oja before. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it well, but I know it's not Oja. Oja is Yoruba is market, and that's like maybe Oja or something. Oja or something. All right, let's move to the next one, and that's the last one. Family, and that is what? Chordophone, and that will be chordophonic instrument. Chordophonic instrument. Also from the name you can see chord. Chordophonic instrument. Can you read?
This class of musical instruments produce sound by the vibration of a stretched string. String can be plucked, strung, or pulled.
Stretched string, and these strings can be what? Stretched, plucked, or bowed. Bowed like a violin with a bow. Plucked like a guitar. Okay, you strike them also to play them. Now you have different instruments. That means this should make you understand that actually in Africa we have, for every Western instrument, we have our own version of the instrument. Do you understand? This is more like what? This instrument looks like what? Yes, the chordophonic instrument. What Western instrument can you compare them to? Violin, guitars, and so on. Yes, violin, guitars, and so on. Viola, and so on. So these are like our own local string instruments. Do you understand? And the first on that list is what? Goje. Goje is from the north. Goje is from the north. That's Goje. Can you pronounce that?
Goje.
Yeah, that's from the north. Our guitar looks like this. When they are singing the Hausa songs now. You know songs like that before? You guys don't listen to music. When you watch movies, no. When you watch TV, more or the other, you must have come across it now. Exactly. So that's Goje. And the next one there is what?
Ubo Akwara.
Ubo Akwara. Yes. Now you see that there is a very close resemblance between the two.
Yes.
So Molo, yes, there's Molo. We have Molo definitely. Now, but you can see that the Ubo Akwara looks like harp. Looks like wet sand harp. Like you play like this. Harp. Yes. Yes, we have a lot of these instruments actually. But one thing I want you to get is actually the classification of these instruments. So the question can come in this way that name two instruments or mention two instruments under each of the families. Okay, again, what's the first family, please?
Idiophone, mellophone, aerophone, and chordophone.
Again.
Idiophone, mellophone, aerophone, and chordophone.
And these are the four classifications of African musical instruments.